Carlos Alcaraz has confirmed the bad news from his doctors. At 23, the seven-time Grand Slam champion has lost 4 months of competition to a right wrist injury. Roland Garros disappeared. Wimbledon followed. Cincinnati then passed without the comeback his supporters expected. His doctors protected his long-term future, but their caution revealed how seriously this problem had affected his season. Alcaraz will now return at the US Open with limited match preparation and immediate 5-set pressure. His talent remains unquestioned. His physical readiness does not. One demanding contest can reveal more than weeks of carefully managed training. Can Alcaraz's wrist survive the toughest possible return, or has desperation pushed him back before the danger has fully passed? Subscribe, share your answer below, and stay with us as we break down the confirmed facts, the remaining medical concerns, and what this comeback means for his future. The confirmed facts explain why this return carries so much uncertainty. Alcaraz injured his right wrist during the Barcelona Open in April. He managed to win his opening match, but the pain grew serious enough for him to withdraw before his next appearance. What first looked like a short interruption became a 4-month absence. Medical tests changed the direction of his season, and his team decided that continuing to compete would place his recovery in danger. That decision arrived during the most important stretch of the European calendar. Alcaraz had entered the clay season as one of the leading contenders for every major trophy. He had already completed the career Grand Slam by winning the Australian Open in February. His early season record stood at an impressive 22 victories from 25 matches. Confidence was high. His body then delivered a warning that talent could not silence. The first major consequence involved Madrid. Playing in front of Spanish supporters normally gives Alcaraz extra energy, but his wrist prevented him from entering the event. Rome disappeared from his schedule soon afterward. Those withdrawals removed valuable preparation before Roland Garros. More importantly, they showed that the injury was not improving quickly enough for his doctors to approve a normal return. Missing the French Open carried a heavier cost. Alcaraz was not simply losing another tournament from his calendar. He was giving up the chance to compete at a Grand Slam, where his movement, drop shots, and explosive ground strokes had already produced major success. The tournament continued without one of its biggest attractions, while Alcaraz remained focused on rehabilitation. Wimbledon then became the next target. Grass rewards quick reactions and shorter points, so some supporters hoped the surface would make his comeback easier. Wrist injuries do not follow that simple logic. Serving still places stress through the arm. Low balls require sharp changes in the racket position. Defensive shots can force the hand into awkward contact. His medical team refused to treat a Grand Slam as an experiment. The withdrawal from Wimbledon confirmed the scale of the problem. 2 major championships had now passed without him. A player who had built his reputation through fearless tennis was forced into the least natural role imaginable. He had to wait. Doctors controlled the timetable because his future mattered more than the temptation of one tournament. Recovery from a wrist problem can become complicated for any professional player. The joint is involved in nearly every important action. It helps control the racket face during contact. It supports acceleration through the forehand. The wrist also absorbs vibration after the ball strikes the strings. Even a small amount of discomfort can affect timing, confidence, and shot selection. Alcaraz's forehand makes those concerns especially important. His stroke depends on enormous racket speed. He can drive through the court, create heavy topspin, or change direction while moving at full pace. That variety gives opponents very little time to settle. It also demands trust in the wrist. A player who fears pain can begin protecting the injured area without consciously deciding to do so. Such protection can alter an entire match. The racket may slow before contact. A safer target can replace an aggressive choice. The serve might lose speed because the player avoids full extension. Opponents notice those changes quickly. At Grand Slam level, a small physical doubt soon becomes a tactical target. This explains why medical clearance cannot be confused with guaranteed match fitness. A doctor can confirm that damaged tissue has healed enough for competition. That assessment does not recreate 4 months of tournament rhythm. It cannot reproduce the tension of a deciding set or the physical strain of repeated matches. Those answers only emerge under real competitive pressure. Alcaraz gradually returned to the practice court. Early sessions were controlled. The intensity increased as his wrist responded. Training with strong players allowed his team to test the movement against faster shots, but every practice remained different from an official match. No ranking points were at stake. A session could be stopped immediately if discomfort appeared. New York will offer no such protection once play begins. His planned return had already moved more than once. Cincinnati appeared to offer a logical comeback point because it would provide matches before the US Open. Alcaraz eventually withdrew from that event as well. The choice removed his final major warm-up tournament and extended the period between his Barcelona injury and his first competitive match in New York. That Cincinnati decision revealed the caution still surrounding his wrist. Entering too early could have placed the entire US Open plan at risk. Waiting protected the recovery process, although it created a different problem. Alcaraz would arrive at a major championship without recent match experience. His body might be healthier, but his competitive sharpness would remain untested. Yet one detail changes the meaning of this comeback. Alcaraz is not returning through an easy event with gentle expectations. He is stepping directly into the tournament where every opponent will test his wrist, his stamina, and his belief. The US Open presents a unique physical challenge. Heat and humidity can drain energy during long afternoon matches. Evening sessions sometimes finish deep into the night. Hard courts punish the legs over repeated rounds. Five-set tennis also demands recovery between matches, which becomes harder when a player has spent months away from the tour. Alcaraz's game requires intense movement. He sprints forward for drop shots, slides into wide positions, and changes direction with unusual force. Those movements mainly challenge the lower body, yet fatigue eventually affects the whole kinetic chain. When the legs stop producing the same power, the arm often works harder. That adjustment can place added pressure on a recovering wrist. The opening rounds therefore matter far more than usual. A comfortable straight-set victory would give Alcaraz valuable court time without excessive strain. A five-set struggle would create immediate questions about recovery. The score alone will not tell the whole story. His serve speed, forehand commitment, and reaction after difficult points will offer more useful clues. Opponents will study those details. Professional players rarely need a public medical report to identify weakness. They watch patterns. If Alcaraz avoids his forehand down the line, an opponent can direct more balls toward that side. Any reduction in first serve speed will invite aggressive returns. Repeated high balls can force him to generate extra racket speed above shoulder height. Alcaraz must also manage the emotional side of the comeback. Months away can create enormous hunger. That hunger often helps an athlete attack the first match with energy, but it can encourage impatience. Trying to prove complete fitness within a few games would be dangerous. He needs discipline even when the crowd pushes him toward spectacular tennis. New York supporters know him well. Alcaraz won his first Grand Slam title there in 2022 and became the youngest man to reach world number 1. That breakthrough changed his life. He returned 3 years later and captured the 2025 title, strengthening his connection with the tournament. Those memories will create confidence, although they will also increase expectations. Defending the championship after such a long absence is a different task from arriving as a healthy favorite. Alcaraz cannot rely on his previous success to protect the wrist. History may settle his nerves, but the body must still complete every swing. His title defense will depend on what happens during the next 2 weeks, rather than what happened in earlier seasons. The competitive landscape has also shifted during his absence. Players continued collecting points while Alcaraz recovered. Draw positions developed without his influence. Rivals built match fitness across clay, grass, and hard courts. The tour never pauses for an injured champion, regardless of his popularity or achievements. His ranking position increases the stakes. Alcaraz enters the US Open as one of the leading players in the world, so every round affects the fight near the top. A deep run would protect important points and restore momentum. An early loss would create a larger opening for his rivals. Still, rankings must remain secondary to his physical health. That balance is difficult for elite athletes. Their careers are measured through titles, weeks at number 1, and victories against major rivals. Doctors view the situation through a different lens. They consider tissue healing, pain response, inflammation, and the risk of further damage. Those priorities can clash when a player feels emotionally ready before his body has completed the necessary work. Alcaraz has already shown that he understands the danger of rushing. He accepted withdrawals from some of the biggest events in tennis. Each decision cost him opportunities that cannot be recovered. The French Open and Wimbledon will not be replayed because he was injured. His willingness to remain absent suggests that the medical concern was treated seriously. That does not mean his future is suddenly in crisis. No official statement has declared that the injury is career-ending. Nothing confirmed by Alcaraz has suggested that retirement is being discussed. Claims of permanent damage would go beyond the available facts. The real bad news is more precise. A significant wrist problem erased 4 months of his season and left him entering the US Open without competitive preparation. Accuracy matters because wrist injuries naturally remind tennis fans of painful examples. Juan Martín del Potro underwent several wrist operations during a career filled with extraordinary talent. Dominic Thiem struggled to regain his former level after a serious wrist injury. Those histories explain the fear, but they do not predict Alcaraz's outcome. Every injury has its own cause, severity, and recovery pattern. Comparisons can also create unnecessary panic. Alcaraz is 23 and has access to an experienced medical team. He stopped competing instead of forcing his way through months of pain. His return announcement indicates that meaningful progress has occurred. These are positive factors, even though they cannot remove every concern. The best evidence will come from his tennis. A confident forehand would show that he trusts the joint under speed. Strong serving across several sets would suggest that the wrist is handling repeated force. Normal recovery before the next round would matter just as much. One successful match cannot answer everything, because a Grand Slam tests players over 2 full weeks. His team will monitor how the wrist responds after each appearance. Pain during play is only part of the picture. Swelling or stiffness can develop later. Medical staff will study the reaction overnight and compare it with earlier training loads. Any unexpected response could force changes to practice, treatment, or match preparation. Tournament scheduling will influence that process. A late finish can reduce recovery time. Rain delays can create compressed schedules. Long matches elsewhere in the draw can move his start time. These details are outside Alcaraz's control, which makes careful energy management even more important. He must decide when to chase difficult balls and when to protect his body. His natural instinct is to turn defense into attack. Fans love that quality because he can produce winners from positions that appear hopeless. During this comeback, smarter restraint may become more valuable than another highlight. Winning efficiently would protect both his wrist and his chances of reaching the later rounds. The serve offers another key test. Alcaraz has improved that shot during his rise, using placement and variation rather than depending only on speed. A healthy wrist helps disguise direction until late in the motion. If he can hit wide serves, body serves, and deliveries down the center with confidence, opponents will struggle to predict his patterns. Second serves deserve close attention as well. They require spin and commitment. Any hesitation can leave the ball short, giving aggressive returners an immediate chance to attack. Double faults sometimes come from timing problems rather than injury, so isolated mistakes should not cause panic. A repeated decline across several sets would be more meaningful. The return of serve places different demands on the wrist. Fast deliveries can jam the body and create sudden impact. A player often has little time to prepare the racket. Alcaraz normally handles those moments with quick hands. His comfort against powerful servers will provide another sign of whether the joint can tolerate unexpected contact. Backhand exchanges could help him manage the workload. His two-handed backhand allows both arms to support the stroke. However, opponents cannot be expected to cooperate by directing every ball there. Once they understand that the forehand side carries concern, they will search for ways to stretch him toward that wing. Alcaraz's variety gives him possible solutions. Drop shots can shorten rallies. Net approaches can prevent long baseline exchanges. Slice can slow the pace and buy recovery time. Those choices must remain tactical rather than defensive reactions to pain. If he uses variety with confidence, his game will still feel complete. Fitness beyond the wrist will also shape the result. 4 months without official matches can affect endurance, regardless of the quality of training. Competitive tennis produces an intensity that practice rarely copies. Players experience scoreboard pressure, crowd noise, and uncertainty about how long a match will last. The body consumes energy differently under those conditions. Alcaraz has survived demanding Grand Slam matches before. His 2022 US Open run included several long contests, proving his ability to recover under pressure. That history offers mental strength. It does not replace the missing match load from this season, but it reminds him that he has solved difficult physical problems in New York. Experience can guide his decisions during uncomfortable moments. A tired player sometimes mistakes normal soreness for a warning sign. Someone returning from injury can also ignore real pain because the desire to continue becomes overwhelming. Alcaraz and his team need honest communication throughout the tournament. Concealing symptoms would protect nothing. The medical staff's role, therefore, continues after clearance. Doctors do not disappear once a player enters the draw. They remain involved in treatment and evaluation. Their advice can influence practice length, recovery routines, and the decision to continue if symptoms return. The final choice belongs within a careful process rather than an emotional reaction. This is where the title's bad news carries its full meaning. Alcaraz has confirmed what the withdrawals already showed. His wrist injury was serious enough to change the heart of his season. It removed him from events he expected to contest and created questions that a social media comeback announcement cannot answer. The US Open will provide those answers in public. Still, the announcement represents progress. A player facing an immediate medical ban would not be preparing to compete. Alcaraz has increased his training intensity and tested the wrist before committing to New York. His team understands the attention surrounding him. They would know that a reckless return could damage both his health and their credibility. Supporters should therefore avoid treating every lost point as evidence of injury. Rust can affect footwork and timing. Nerves can create poor decisions. An opponent can simply play better. The challenge is to separate normal competitive problems from signs connected to the wrist. Body language will attract heavy attention. A shake of the hand or glance toward the team will quickly spread online. Slow-motion clips can make an ordinary reaction appear alarming. Genuine concern should be based on repeated behavior, reduced shot speed, treatment, or statements from Alcaraz and his team. One isolated gesture cannot provide a diagnosis. The same caution applies to practice footage. A short video can show Alcaraz striking the ball cleanly, but it cannot prove that he is ready for 7 matches. Edited clips remove pauses and treatment. Camera angles hide the amount of effort involved. Training images are encouraging, although they remain incomplete evidence. Official communication becomes vital in this environment. Alcaraz has shared the return publicly. Tournament organizers have placed him back into the competitive picture. Any further medical update should come from him, his representatives, or the event. Anonymous claims about secret diagnoses should not be treated as established truth. The confirmed timeline is dramatic enough without invention. April brought the injury. Medical examinations led to caution. Madrid, Rome, Roland Garros, and Wimbledon disappeared from the schedule. North American preparation was then reduced when Cincinnati became another withdrawal. August finally brought the return announcement. New York now becomes the test. That sequence also explains why expectations need to remain realistic. Alcaraz possesses enough talent to defeat elite opponents even when his timing is imperfect. He can produce sudden runs of brilliant tennis. Winning the championship, however, would require sustained health across 7 rounds. Each victory would raise the physical load for the next match. The draw will play a major role. Early opponents with defensive styles can extend rallies and force him to hit extra shots. Big servers might shorten points but create difficult returns. Experienced players will test his patience. Younger opponents could enter with nothing to lose. No path through a Grand Slam is medically convenient. Weather adds another layer. Hot conditions can increase fatigue and reduce concentration. Sweat affects grip, which matters for a player protecting his wrist. A slippery handle forces tighter control from the hand and forearm. Equipment adjustments, fresh grips, and careful hydration will become small but important parts of the comeback. Racket setup can influence comfort too. String tension affects control, power, and impact sensation. Players often make minor adjustments depending on conditions. Alcaraz's team will avoid changes that disturb his timing, yet they can select arrangements that support comfort. These technical decisions remain private unless he chooses to discuss them. Recovery work between matches will be equally important. Treatment can include controlled movement, strengthening exercises, and methods designed to manage soreness. The exact program belongs to his doctors and physical team. Outsiders should not pretend to know every medical detail. What matters is whether he continues competing without a worsening response. If Alcaraz reaches the middle rounds, the conversation will begin to change. Attention will move from whether he can finish one match toward whether he can contend for the title. That shift could happen quickly because of his reputation. His team must resist outside pressure and judge each day separately. A deep run would be one of the season's most remarkable stories. Returning after 4 months and immediately challenging for a Grand Slam would show extraordinary preparation. It would also confirm that patience protected his long-term interests. Success would not make the earlier bad news less real. It would show that the recovery plan worked. An early defeat would not automatically mean the comeback failed. Match sharpness takes time. A healthy wrist combined with poor timing would still represent progress. Alcaraz's future extends far beyond one US Open. The most important outcome is leaving New York without causing another setback. Withdrawal remains a possible decision if the wrist reacts badly. That possibility exists for every player carrying recent medical history. Choosing to stop would hurt, especially during a title defense, but it would not signal weakness. Alcaraz has already learned that protecting his body sometimes requires surrendering an immediate goal. The reaction from fans will matter emotionally. Some will demand spectacular tennis because his name appears in the draw. Others will fear injury after every hard swing. Alcaraz needs space between those extremes. He is neither guaranteed to dominate nor destined to break down. He is an elite athlete returning from a serious interruption. His age creates hope. At 23, time remains on his side. He has already achieved milestones that many champions never reach. 7 Grand Slam titles and a completed career. Grand Slam give him freedom to make cautious choices. He does not need to gamble his future to prove his greatness in one tournament. Age does not make him indestructible. Heavy schedules can wear down young players, especially when success carries them deep into nearly every event. Alcaraz's explosive style places major demands on his body. Calendar decisions will remain important after the US Open, regardless of his result. His team must examine the remainder of the season carefully. A successful return can create pressure to enter several tournaments quickly. Ranking goals and sponsorship duties will add temptation. Medical response should control that schedule. Rest may remain necessary even if New York ends positively. The wrist injury can also influence his long-term approach to training. Strength work may focus more closely on the forearm and surrounding muscles. Technical review can identify movements that create unnecessary strain. Tournament selection might become more selective. None of those adjustments would mean his game is being weakened. They would represent an effort to preserve it. Several great players have extended their careers by adapting. They reduced unnecessary events, improved efficiency, and treated recovery as part of competition. Alcaraz is still early in his journey, but this setback offers a serious lesson. Talent wins matches only when the body remains available. His split from longtime coach Juan Carlos Ferrero before the 2026 season had already brought change around his team. Samuel Lopez took a greater role as Alcaraz entered a new phase of his career. The wrist injury then tested that structure under difficult conditions. Managing rehabilitation demands trust because the player must accept decisions that conflict with his competitive desire. The team's patience deserves attention. Public pressure grew as each tournament passed. Questions about the US Open became louder after Cincinnati. Instead of promising an early date, they waited until Alcaraz was prepared to announce his return. That restraint reduced certainty for supporters, but medical recovery should never be arranged around public impatience. Alcaraz's own words during the layoff reflected frustration and hope. He acknowledged the difficulty of the period while expressing confidence that he would return stronger. Such optimism is natural. It should be understood as a competitive mindset, not a medical guarantee. The doctors provide evaluation. The player provides belief. Both are necessary for a successful comeback. His first entrance onto court in New York will carry unusual weight. The crowd will celebrate the return before a ball is struck. Alcaraz will feel the energy that helped shape his career. Once the match begins, emotion must settle into concentration. Every point will demand decisions based on position, score, and physical response. Early nerves are likely after such a long absence. Timing can disappear when a player tries to force control. Alcaraz may need several games to find his range. Patience from the opening set will help him avoid unnecessary strain. Simple patterns could allow his confidence to grow naturally. His opponent will probably attempt to extend uncertainty. Slow play between points, changes of pace, or attacks toward the forehand may be used to test him. Alcaraz must avoid interpreting tactical pressure as disrespect. The other player's job is to find weakness. His job is to prove that the weakness no longer controls the match. Crowd support can help during difficult stretches. It can also encourage risky decisions. Alcaraz loves entertaining spectators and sometimes attempts shots that few players would consider. During this return, disciplined tennis may look less thrilling but carry greater value. The best highlight could be a routine victory completed without pain. Each round would then add evidence. One match tests immediate tolerance. Several matches test recovery. The second week tests whether accumulated load changes his movement or stroke production. By the quarterfinal stage, the wrist would have experienced conditions that training could never fully reproduce. Success against a top opponent would answer tactical questions, yet medical certainty still requires time. Some injuries remain quiet during competition before reacting later. Long-term evaluation will continue after the tournament. The US Open is a major checkpoint rather than the final page of his recovery. That distinction protects the truth of the story. Alcaraz has confirmed his return, not the permanent end of every wrist concern. His doctors have allowed progress, not promised invincibility. The bad news belongs to what the injury has already taken and the risk that still surrounds high-level competition. For tennis, his presence is valuable. Fans want the strongest players facing each other on the biggest courts. Alcaraz brings speed, imagination, and emotion to every major event. His absence left a clear gap during the spring and summer. New York gains energy by welcoming him back. For his rivals, the return changes the draw. Even without recent matches, Alcaraz remains dangerous. Few players can match his ability to change a point instantly. They will respect his record while testing his fitness. Nobody will offer him an easier match because he spent 4 months recovering. For Alcaraz, the goal must remain simple. He needs to compete honestly, listen to his body, and avoid letting expectations control medical decisions. A trophy would be extraordinary. A healthy exit would still carry meaning. His career cannot be reduced to one fortnight. The coming days will reveal whether controlled training prepared him for real pressure. His first serve will provide an early clue. The first long forehand exchange will offer another. Later rounds will deliver stronger evidence. Until then, certainty belongs only to the facts already confirmed. A right wrist injury changed his season. Medical advice kept him away from several major tournaments. The absence stretched across 4 months. Cincinnati came too soon. The US Open has become his chosen return point. Everything beyond that must be proven on court. That is why the comeback feels both exciting and uncomfortable. Supporters can celebrate seeing Alcaraz compete again while recognizing the danger behind the moment. Hope does not require pretending the injury was minor. Concern does not require declaring his future destroyed. His doctors delivered a difficult message months ago. Healing had to come before competition. Alcaraz followed it, despite losing some of the most important opportunities of his season. He has now reached the stage where medical progress meets competitive reality. The wrist must withstand what rehabilitation was designed to prepare it for. The result will influence more than one tournament. A healthy run would restore confidence before the final part of the season. Continued trouble would force another period of rest and create fresh questions about scheduling. Either outcome will guide the decisions that follow. Alcaraz has faced pressure since becoming a teenage star. Expectations grew with every major title. This challenge is different because effort alone cannot solve it. He cannot outrun inflammation or overpower pain through ambition. Recovery demands judgment, and judgment sometimes requires stopping. That lesson may become valuable across the rest of his career. Champions are often praised for refusing to quit, but courage can also appear through restraint. Alcaraz showed restraint during the 4 months he remained away. New York will show whether that patience produced the physical foundation he needs. No opponent will care about the emotional weight of his absence once the match starts. Balls will arrive at full speed. Scoreboard pressure will return immediately. Alcaraz must respond with the skills that carried him to 7 major titles, while respecting the joint that interrupted his rise. His story therefore enters its most revealing stage. The medical tests happened in private. Rehabilitation unfolded mostly away from competition. Practice footage offered selected glimpses. The US Open will remove that protection. Every swing will be visible and every reaction will be examined. The fairest conclusion will come after watching the full picture. One forehand cannot prove complete health. A single mistake cannot confirm damage. Several matches, honest communication, and the wrist's response over time will provide the real answer. Alcaraz does not need sympathy when he walks onto the court. He needs health, patience, and enough competitive control to avoid turning excitement into recklessness. The crowd will supply emotion. His team will supply guidance. The final responsibility will rest with the player holding the racket. At 23, he has already experienced the highest rewards in tennis and one of the sport's most frightening interruptions. The bad news from his doctors cost him months that should have contained major battles. His return gives him a chance to reclaim the part of his season that remains. It does not return the opportunities already lost. New York now stands between fear and proof. If the wrist survives, Alcaraz can begin rebuilding momentum. If pain returns, the medical plan will need to change again. Nothing about that choice should be hidden behind dramatic rumors. The confirmed reality already carries enough weight. Carlos Alcaraz is back in the draw. His name will appear beside the leading contenders. The history books will remember only the final result, but his team will judge something more important. They will watch whether his body accepts competition after 4 difficult months. That answer will shape the rest of 2026 and influence how carefully future schedules are built. It will also show whether one of tennis's brightest young champions can turn a painful medical setback into a controlled return. The story is no longer about when he will play again. It is about what happens when he finally does. Do you believe Alcaraz's wrist is ready for 7 Grand Slam matches, or has this comeback arrived too soon? Share your answer in the comments. If you want honest tennis updates built around confirmed facts, subscribe now, hit the like button, and stay with us as Carlos Alcaraz begins the most important comeback of his young career.